Some stories don't need jump scares or monsters to get under your skin. These 3 true horror stories unfold in quiet places, cabins, small towns, familiar homes, where unease builds slowly, and something terrifying hides just beyond the edge of reason. Listen closely, because what happened to them could happen to anyone, and sometimes the scariest thing is what you almost see. If you are new to this channel and enjoy scary true stories like these, please help this channel grow by subscribing and turning on notifications. Every subscription helps us bring you more real horror stories that keep you up at night. Thank you for your support. I grew up in a small town in Oregon, a place where people still left their doors unlocked and knew every neighbor by name. It was the kind of place that made you feel like nothing bad could ever happen. Everyone had a routine, a rhythm to life that never seemed to change. But sometimes, something or someone can show up and shake that belief to the core. What happened to me still doesn't make sense, but I know what I saw, I know what I felt, and I haven't been the same since. This all happened when I was 19. I had just finished my first year of community college and was living at home to save money. My parents went on a 2-week anniversary trip to Europe, and I stayed behind to watch the house and take care of the dog, a lazy old lab named Daisy, who barely barked at anything. I wasn't nervous about being alone. I actually liked it. Quiet house, no one nagging me to clean up or get off the Xbox. It felt like a break from life. The first few days were totally normal. I'd go to class in the morning, swing by work for a few hours, come home, make dinner, walk Daisy, then stay up late gaming or watching movies. Nothing unusual, nothing creepy. Until the Thursday after they left. That evening, I came home around sunset and noticed something off. The gate to the backyard was open. Daisy was inside, sleeping in her usual spot, so it couldn't have been her. I figured maybe the wind blew it open, or my dad hadn't latched it properly before leaving. No big deal. I shut it and forgot about it. That night, I was in the living room playing a game when I heard a knock at the front door. A slow, soft knock. I checked the time. It was just after 11 p.m. That already struck me as odd. Nobody came to our house that late, especially unannounced. I muted my game and listened. Another knock, a little louder this time. I peeked through the peephole but didn't see anyone. I turned off the porch light and looked again. Still no one there. I chalked it up to some kid playing Ding Dong Ditch and went back to my game. But as I sat back down, I caught something out of the corner of my eye. Movement. Outside the window past the hedge, a shadow moving across the lawn. Not fast, not like someone running away after a prank. It was slow, deliberate. I stood up, heart thudding, and walked to the front window. I could just barely see a figure standing near the mailbox, facing the house. It was too dark to make out details, but I knew someone was there. I watched for a few seconds. It didn't move. I turned on the outside lights, and just like that, it was gone. I don't mean it ran. I mean it was gone, like it vanished. I went outside, walked to the end of the driveway, even called out hello, but nothing. Just night and silence. I tried to brush it off, told myself it was just someone lost or a drunk neighbor, but I didn't sleep well that night. Every little creak and sound had me jumping. Daisy didn't even lift her head, and that's what really bothered me. She always barked when someone came to the door, always, but not that night. The next day, I told a friend about it, half joking, but he gave me this look like, dude, that's not normal. He offered to crash at my place that night, but I said no. I didn't want to admit I was spooked. That night, I went through the house, locked every door and window, even shut the blinds. I let Daisy sleep in my room, just for peace of mind. I left my bedroom window cracked open for some air, since it was warm out, but I locked the screen in place. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to Daisy growling, not barking, growling, low and deep. I sat up fast, heart pounding, and saw her staring at the window. I didn't hear anything at first. Then I did. A soft scraping sound, like fingernails or something metallic dragging across the window screen. I froze. I didn't want to move, didn't want to breathe. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. I pointed it at the window and saw nothing, just the mesh screen and trees outside. No person, no movement. But then the screen bulged inward, like someone was pushing on it gently with their hand. I dropped the phone, grabbed the baseball bat under my bed, and shouted, "I've got a bat and a dog." The bulging stopped immediately. Total silence. I ran to the window and slammed it shut, locked it, then pulled the blinds tight. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat in the corner of the room, with Daisy by my side, listening, waiting. Nothing else happened, but I knew someone had been there, watching, testing, and they knew I was alone. The next morning, I found deep scratches on the window screen, long jagged lines that hadn't been there the day before. I took photos, texted my parents, and called the non-emergency police line. An officer came by, looked around but didn't find much. He suggested maybe it was a raccoon or large cat, but the way those marks were, no animal did that. That weekend, it got worse. Saturday night, I stayed up late watching a movie in the living room. I turned everything off around midnight, and was heading to bed when I heard something on the back porch, a clinking sound, like metal on metal. I grabbed the bat again, and crept toward the kitchen window. I looked out, and my stomach dropped. Someone was standing on the back deck, face turned directly toward the kitchen. He was tall, wearing a hooded jacket, and holding what looked like a screwdriver or knife, just tapping it lightly on the railing, over and over. I didn't turn on the light. I just stood there, hoping he couldn't see me through the slats in the blinds. He kept tapping, then slowly, he stepped off the deck, and walked into the shadows. I called 911 this time. The dispatcher was calm but firm, told me to stay inside, stay on the line, and wait for officers. They arrived within 10 minutes, but again, no sign of him, just muddy footprints on the porch, and marks on the door, like he was trying to pry it open. After that, I didn't stay at the house. I went to my cousin's place across town. My parents came home early, after I begged them to. When they got back, we reviewed the security camera my dad had hidden near the garage. A camera I didn't even know we had. What we saw made my blood run cold. 3 separate nights, the camera caught the same man, walking up to the house, circling it slowly, checking doors, looking into windows. He never looked at the camera. It was like he knew where it was. The last video showed him standing in the backyard, staring straight up at my bedroom window for nearly 10 minutes without moving. The police opened a case, but never found him. We changed all the locks, installed a full security system, even trimmed back the hedges and trees, but I never really felt safe there again. To this day, I don't know who he was or what he wanted. He never broke in, never said a word, but he knew I was alone, and somehow, that was enough for him, enough to come back, enough to wait. And even now, years later, every time I hear a knock at night, or a strange sound outside my window, I freeze. I listen, I wonder, because part of me still believes he's not done. I took a job 2 years ago that nearly ruined me. I haven't talked about it until now. Even saying it out loud makes my skin crawl, but I can't keep it to myself anymore. I need to get it out. Maybe then I'll sleep again. It was a seasonal gig at a remote lodge up in the Adirondacks, in upstate New York. Not a resort, more like a rustic wilderness retreat. 12 cabins spread out along a gravel loop near a lake. No TV, no internet. Most people came to fish or hike or just disappear for a few days. The place only stayed open from late spring to early fall, when the weather wasn't death by frostbite. I was fresh out of a rough breakup and needed to get away. A friend of mine knew the manager and got me the job doing general maintenance and cleaning. I figured a summer in the woods with no distractions would do me good. I was wrong. The lodge itself was a central check-in cabin with a little shop and an office. I lived in a converted shed behind it. Every morning, I'd walk the loop, check the cabins for anything broken, then clean whatever guests had checked out the day before. It was quiet work, peaceful, mostly, until the woman in cabin 6 showed up. I didn't see her check in. My manager, Ed, handled it while I was fixing a plumbing issue at cabin 3. When I came back, he just said, "Older lady, paid cash, staying 3 nights, kept to herself." I asked which cabin, and he pointed at the keyboard, number 6. That was the oldest cabin on the property, partially rebuilt after a fire back in the 80s. It sat farther out than the others, nestled between pine trees and right next to the lake's edge. Most guests didn't like how dark it got at night. The next morning, I walked by to do my rounds. Her car, a beat-up silver Volvo, was parked out front, but the curtains were drawn tight. I didn't think much of it until I realized I hadn't seen her once. No walks to the lodge, no noise, not even movement. The weird part, cabin 6 didn't have a full kitchen. If she wasn't coming up to the lodge, she wasn't eating unless she'd brought everything in with her. I figured maybe she just wanted to be left alone. I respected that, but something started to bother me. Each morning, when I passed by, I'd find the same thing, a chair from the porch pulled out and facing the lake. Not unusual, except it was always in the exact same position, like identical, down to the angle of the legs on the boards. I know because one leg always rested on a split plank, causing it to tilt slightly. The first night I was on trash duty, I walked the loop at sunset. When I reached cabin 6, I noticed the curtain on the left window shift, just a little, like someone was watching. I froze, thinking maybe she was waiting for me to move on. Then the porch light turned on, but the cabin's power had been off earlier that day. I knew because Ed told me he had to flip the breaker that morning when it tripped during a storm. Cabin 6 didn't have working porch lights, or so we thought. The light went off again, just as quick. I stood there for a solid minute before walking away. Later that night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to what I thought was someone knocking. 3 soft knocks, not at my door, farther away. I peeked out the window. The trees swayed gently. Nothing moved. The next day, I asked Ed if the woman had checked out early. He looked confused. "Nope," said, 3 nights. "You okay?" I told him I hadn't seen her, not even once. He shrugged. "Some folks come here to vanish. I don't ask questions as long as they don't trash the place." That didn't sit right with me. I decided I'd knock, ask if she needed anything, maybe even check the smoke detectors like I usually did. When I walked up to cabin 6, I noticed something strange. The porch chair was gone, just gone. I looked around the side, nothing. Figured maybe she took it inside, so I knocked. No answer. I knocked again, a little louder, still nothing. I started to turn when I heard it. 3 slow knocks, coming from inside the cabin, but not near the door, from the back wall of the cabin, like someone knocking from inside, but not in response to me, like they were knocking at the wall itself. I backed away and left. The next morning, I brought it up again. Ed got serious, said we'd check the cabin together after checkout, but when we went back at noon, the place was empty, and I mean empty. No luggage, no sign anyone had stayed there. The bed was made, no trash in the bin, no smell of perfume or food or anything that tells you someone had lived there for even a day, except for one thing, the chair. That damn porch chair was back, facing the lake. same exact position. Ed swore he didn't move it. We checked the guest book. No name for cabin 6. No payment. No record. Ed swore he checked her in, but there was nothing, like she never existed. We reported it to the owner, who told us something I'll never forget. Cabin 6 wasn't supposed to be rented out. He said after the fire back in '87, a woman had died in that cabin. She'd been staying alone. No one knew she was even there, until a neighboring guest saw smoke and called for help. The cabin partially collapsed before anyone could get to her. After that, they rebuilt part of it to meet insurance requirements, but no one felt comfortable renting it out. Guests who stayed there often left early, said they heard knocking, felt watched, saw things, so they quietly retired it. Didn't even list it anymore, just used it for storage. Ed was stunned. He swore he'd seen her, tall gray hair in a bun, wearing a faded blue coat. Said she handed him cash in an envelope. Exact change. Said she smiled, but her eyes looked wrong. We tried checking the security cam facing the office. The footage glitched that day, cut out right around when he said she arrived. That night was my last at the lodge. I locked myself in the shed and stayed up until morning. Right before dawn, I heard it again. 3 soft knocks, not on my door this time, on the back wall of the shed, just like cabin 6. I packed my things at sunrise and drove 6 hours home without stopping. I've never been back. I quit by email. Ed left that fall, said he couldn't explain it, but couldn't stay there either. Sometimes I check satellite images of the area. Cabin 6 is still there, still listed as storage, but in one image, just one, taken 2 years ago, you can see a chair on the porch, facing the lake, and a shape standing behind it, not moving, just watching. I grew up in a quiet wooded suburb in Vermont, one of those towns where the biggest excitement was the yearly Maple Festival and the occasional bear sighting. Our house sat on the edge of a cul-de-sac, backed up by dense forest and a long stretch of chain-link fencing that separated our backyard from the woods. It wasn't remote or anything, just the kind of place where kids rode bikes until the streetlights came on, and nobody locked their doors until bedtime. Safe, or at least it felt that way. I was 13 the summer this happened. My parents had started letting me stay home alone during the day while they were at work. My dad worked at a car dealership in town, and my mom was a nurse at the local clinic. Both were usually home by 6, and most days were uneventful. I'd sleep in, eat something dumb like Pop-Tarts for breakfast, watch TV, maybe mess around on the family computer. That was my routine. This one afternoon, it was sunny, humid, and just boring enough that I decided to go outside and shoot hoops in our driveway. I'd been out there maybe 15 minutes when I noticed something through the back trees. Movement. I stopped, ball under my arm, squinting past the sun glare. There was a man standing just on the other side of the fence, maybe 20 or 30 feet back in the tree line. At first I figured it was a hiker or someone from the next neighborhood over. People sometimes cut through the woods as a shortcut, but this guy wasn't walking. He was just standing there, watching. I remember freezing for a second, thinking maybe it was just my imagination or a weird shadow. But then he moved, just a little, stepping sideways like he was adjusting for a better view. He was tall, wearing a hoodie, even though it was nearly 85 degrees out, and had this really pale, almost gray-toned face. I couldn't make out his eyes exactly, but I could feel him looking at me. I went inside. I didn't run or anything. I didn't want to seem scared, even though my heart was thudding like a bass drum. I shut the back door and locked it. Then I pulled the curtain on the sliding door and stood there for a minute, listening. Nothing. A few minutes passed, and I started to feel kind of dumb. Maybe he was just some random dude passing through. I went back to watching TV, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still out there. Every creak in the house made me flinch. About 20 minutes later, I heard a tap. not loud, just enough to snap me out of the show I was watching. I muted the TV and waited. Then I heard it again. Tap, 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 like fingernails on glass. I slowly walked to the kitchen, where the sliding door to the backyard was. The curtain was still closed, but I could see a faint silhouette behind it, like someone was standing just inches away on the other side. I didn't move. I held my breath and watched as a shadow shifted slightly, then stayed still. Then I heard the back gate open. I bolted up the stairs to my room, slammed the door and locked it. I grabbed the cordless phone from my nightstand and called my mom. She picked up right away, and I told her someone was in the backyard. She went from calm to panicked in seconds. She told me to stay in my room, keep the door locked, and not to go anywhere near the windows. She was calling the police. While I was on the phone with her, I heard the sound of the back door handle jiggling. Someone was trying it, lightly at first, then more forcefully. I whispered to my mom that he was trying to get in. She told me the police were on their way, and just to stay hidden. Then it stopped. For a moment, there was only silence. No footsteps, no taps, nothing. I crept to my bedroom window, carefully pulling back the blind, just a crack. I had a partial view of the backyard and driveway from up there, and I wanted to see if the guy had left. Instead, what I saw nearly made me drop the phone. He was standing in the driveway now, not facing the street, facing the house, just standing there like he was waiting for something. That hoodie was still pulled up over his head, and I noticed his jeans were soaked from the knees down, like he'd been walking through water or tall wet grass. He didn't move, just stared. I ducked back, heart pounding. Then I remembered all the windows were closed, except the small one in the laundry room in the basement. It never latched properly and opened inward. My dad kept saying he'd fix it, but hadn't yet. If this guy made his way around the back again. I whispered to my mom about the basement window, and I could hear her frantically telling the police to hurry. She kept me talking, asking if I could still hear anything. I was listening so hard that I didn't even notice the footsteps on the stairs until they were halfway up. I slammed my bedroom light off and crawled under the bed. The hardwood floor creaked. Slow, deliberate steps just outside my room. I held the phone tight against my ear and tried not to breathe. The footsteps stopped. Then, a quiet knock. Not hard, just one of those slow, polite knocks, like someone trying to be invited in. He knew I was in there. I was whispering to my mom that he was right outside when suddenly, there was a loud bang from downstairs, like a door being forced open. Then voices shouting, "Police!" I heard stomping, yelling, more banging. The guy must have tried to run because I could hear the back screen door slamming open. A moment later, someone was knocking hard on my bedroom door, calling my name and identifying themselves as police. I didn't move until my mom screamed into the phone that it was okay. When I opened the door, 2 officers were standing there, flashlights drawn. One of them had a dog on a leash that was barking like crazy. They escorted me downstairs, asked me some questions, and checked every inch of the house. They never caught him. The guy had escaped into the woods before the police could get around back. They found footprints though, big ones, deep in the dirt by the fence. They said it looked like he'd been standing there for a while, maybe even watching the house for hours. What really got me though was when they checked the basement window. It was pushed open, not all the way, but enough that someone had clearly tried to get in. After that, my parents installed a full security system, cameras, alarms, floodlights, you name it. They never let me stay home alone again, at least not until I was 16, and even then, only during the day. I still live in that town, and my parents still live in that house. I'm older now, and rational enough to understand that bad people can show up anywhere, even in safe little towns. But I'll never forget the look of that figure by the fence, that unnatural stillness, like he wasn't just some random guy passing through but someone who had chosen our house, chosen me, and the scariest part, he knew I was home.